Right. 3, 2, 1?
3, 2, 1.
All right, guys, we're back. It's a totally different day. It's
completely.
Not
That's why we
4 seconds later.
We always dress like this.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting thing. I was looking through the episodes, and I used to be able to tell like what we did based on what shirt I was wearing.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I think I got like 7 shirts.
Yeah, exactly. So at some point,
well, actually, that's wrong. I have like 7D. I wear like 7.
Yeah.
So, anyway, this week
I wanted to go about nutrition, but more precisely macros.
Yeah.
Why? Because this is an argumentation that I hear on a number of problems, and it is the wrong one, but is being applied thoroughly on, for example, anti-depression pills and stuff like that. And we need to debunk that way of thinking because it is being used on a number of things and it never works. Mm-hmm. It's just not working. But that pervasive way of thinking just keeps hanging around and making its way into almost everything. And it's again, like, so we talked in the last one, away from the system. The idea that you hear with macros is always the same. So I've explained that to me macros are bullshit because the state of your digestion decides the nutrients you're going to get from food, and so that food ingested is not food digested. Yeah. So since food ingested is not the same as food digested, based on the state you're in, that means that having a specific number of grams on your plate is absurd.
Yeah.
By definition, since, go ahead.
That's complicated to explain. With my Bluetooth, sometimes I forgot I have it in my pocket and it pauses if I.
There you go. So there you go.
So now that I jammed
but
the issue is we're trying to. Sometimes when people talk manipulating macros, they're talking about basically you're intervening in a system, and it's kind of the wrong place. Intervening at what you put in your mouth.
Right. So that's the wrong. And and then they go like, okay, so they can't really fight me on that because it's so obvious. So the next way they have of putting macros into the system is the one I want to debate today, where they say, well, you could put people on macros for 6 weeks to get them started, to explain to them like this is the quantities you're supposed to have, and after 6 weeks, their body can just take over and keep going after based on that base that they just built through 6 weeks of macros. We see that exactly with the pills. Antidepressant, I'm going to put you on serotonin so you can start winning for a few weeks. And from there, once we've built up the momentum of winning, then you can just take over and go. Yeah. And what we see every time is that momentum stops the second you stop the pill, number, macro, whatever it is. Yeah. The second you stop, it stops. Yeah. Because you do not understand that you cannot optimize a part of a system without either doing nothing to the system because it just reverts back or crashing the entire thing. Yeah. It does not work like that. Once you have created a system with macros or pills or whatever, you have changed the system. When you remove the macros, you change the system differently, and therefore there is no continuity between the two systems.
Yeah, and you're removing any of the behavioral issues.
That is what I'm going to talk about today.
And I think that's where we see a huge issue. I remember this from the first time I ever had you on the podcast. You were first ever talking about torque with me in fucking Encinitas, California 3-4 years ago. And it was the same thing. You were talking about the overhead position and torque, and my thing was, wouldn't it be easier to just get them there and then we can figure it out later? And the solution, the thing that you had said to me, which has stuck with me ever since, was, why don't we treat these people like fucking people? Like, would you let somebody go teach your kid like the wrong way to think for 5 years, and then you can just drag it out of their head?
Well, actually, that's what they tell you.
What a fuck, yeah.
Teach them wrong first, and then you can teach them correctly later. And I'm like, I don't get it. Yeah. Because you're shaping a way of thinking that you'll have to unshape later on. That's what you're doing with that.
Yeah, and it's very, very, very hard because anything that is established becomes a part of your reality. And it's very difficult to remove it. Same thing. So with macros, if you start to live, breathe, and die, and you're only, by the way, you get results. If you're getting weight loss from just adjusting these numbers, now that's your tool. That's your world.
By the way, that's the worst thing you can do is getting results from it. Yeah. And so let me explain to you what my position is. I'm going to go at interoception for that. Mm-hmm. We have seen, that's another, we'll talk about that subject more, but I was reading a lot about interoception and eating disorders. And what we saw with eating disorders is a problem with a sense of self. Yeah. So, 100% of the time, when you eat, 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 100% of the not to say you're a bad person. That's not what I mean. What I mean is that your sense of self is not as sharp as it needs to be. There can also be sociological reason and anything. But I want to go specifically at interoception. From the podcast that we've done, just go and find them. We have the sense of self is built on interoception, of our capacity to recognize the signals from the gut and the heart all the way to the brain. Yeah. I made an entire subject on a podcast.
3 or 4 episodes.
3 or 4 on a podcast, right. So that means that the clarity of the signals that you get from your viscera, right, is how the sense of self is built, a huge part of it. So that's why in eating disorders, we see a problem with the sense of self, because that means that people are not getting a clear picture of their own signals that allows them to build the proper image of their body that is linked to the sense of self. We have different way of looking at our own body. It's a little bit like the superego and the id from Freud. There is the body that's what we call a subject, like how you feel about your own body, and then there is the object, when you just look at the body as a thing, or people look at your body, then that becomes the object. Okay. So you have a subject versus an object. It's a lot like the me and the I, like you can tell, like, there's a direct correlation with all this. They all link together, right? So when I introduce the macros, what I am saying is your own signals of hunger, thirst, or wanting to eat or stuff like that are not reliable. They are unreliable. If you get results on the macros, what are you saying? Even more of that, which means you cannot rely on your own signals. They are not to be trusted versus the numbers that I'm giving you.
And then you just train and habituate that. You respect that dissonance is required, or it just has to be
So
ignored.
Now what you're saying is that the destroying of your sense of self is a requirement for you to get better.
Yeah. And that's why that's the thing that you see with those things like macro diets.
Yes.
That is fundamentally there's a scalability and a sustainability problem. You can't go all the way up with it, and you can't go all the way down.
But imagine if it does more than that. Imagine if macros
the human will break.
Exactly.
Not the macro system.
Not the macro system. The human will break.
I've done it before. I've simply ramped up gradually
right.
my output and my carbs.
And the more you did that, the more you had to disconnect yourself from your signals.
Start taking 2.5-hour naps in the middle of the afternoon.
Right, yeah.
Start continuing to get heavier. You're putting on muscle, but man, at a cost. Yeah. Miserable most of the day, constantly eating.
Moods.
Hey man, if I'm gonna be this big, it just sucks. And so that's just the way it went.
But so in order to keep doing that, then you have to shut off the suck. Right, so that means you keep just disconnecting yourself from your body. Yeah. When you disconnect yourself from the signals of your body, you are slowly but surely destroying your sense of self. Yeah. So that means that the only thing you're going to do is create eating disorders. Well, so macros, by definition, lead to eating disorders.
And on the end of it, there's also a thing that you go through all of that stuff because you have a why that you think matters to you, right? But what you start to do is then your why then suddenly becomes not enough, or it becomes something that you have to choose to disconnect from, because at least in my case, I was trying to get bigger and stronger for whatever. But like, what if you're trying to get healthy and lose weight, and it is working, and your why is for health, but then you start to feel this dysfunction, that I'm starving, that I'm miserable, I have low energy, I'm not eating enough, or I'm eating too much, or I'm overtraining. Then what you do is you begin to resent your why, and you start to create
resent
distance.
your body. Exactly. Your body is making you, and by disconnecting it too, you are taking your body as a subject to your body as an object. Yeah. So you know what the first thing it does? It changes the way what you see in the mirror. Because what you look in the mirror right now when you're happy and I feel good, is you seeing the subject, right? Now you're shifting it to an object. Object, and so by shifting those two, you can also start to have body composition terrors in that sense, because now your view of your body has no emotional connection anymore. So now you start to look at it differently. And if you go on social media, say, I want to look like that guy. Yeah. Well, that guy in the mirror is not that guy here. That guy looks bad compared to that guy here, but the problem is that guy is you. But so now you start to see your body as an object. So it's something to be hated, something to be turned into this. Yeah. You can see that it is not your body anymore. Now it's an object. Like this has been through psychotherapy, psychology, they talked about it in different terms, but it doesn't matter. It's all the same. This is hell.
Yeah.
This is hell. So if you're telling me like, yeah, but we're just going to do it for 6 weeks. It's like saying, look, I'm depressed. I'm going to take cocaine for 4 weeks. I'll feel better. And from there, I can go on. No, because after 4 weeks of cocaine, when you stop the cocaine, the entire addiction process has started. And by the way, with that cocaine, I feel like shit. But I've told my body that the only way to feel good about myself is to take cocaine. Mm-hmm. So now, when I stop cocaine, I have 2 problems. I have a cocaine problem on top of the problem I had before the cocaine.
Yeah.
So now, when you stop the macros, you have 2 problems. You have the fact that you can't look the way you look, but now you also have a macro problem.
Yeah. I have seen, and it's very easy. The macro thing is very rigid guidelines for one, which means that there is a definite good, and then there is everything else, which is bad. Yeah, that's the thing. Is you have your numbers. Did you hit your numbers today?
Right.
No? Well, then why? Are you a
Exactly.
naughty little boy?
Yeah.
Like that's the shit. And I've seen this in CrossFit gyms. I've seen this in CrossFit gyms that were direct competitors to mine.
Yeah, exactly.
That were working with nutritionists, and it was fucking insulting to see it on paper as a person who cares about people. I've seen CrossFit gyms do nutrition challenges, which fundamentally, maybe you can do them the right way. This is how you don't do them. Do a nutrition challenge. Then you do a nutrition challenge where if you exceed your macros or you have a cheat meal that's outside of this, what you get to do is you have to mark that down, and you can make up for it by doing an extra workout that week or 100 burpees. And I was like, you have literally mapped out a 1-month challenge to disordered fitness and disordered nutritional behavior.
And disordered sense of self.
How dare you charge people money for this?
Yeah.
You shouldn't subject people to
by
that
the way,
as an experiment, for Christ's
let's
sake.
say you get your macros and your body stops changing, because it will, because you cannot
It will only
disengage
work until it doesn't.
Right, you're disengaging yourself from your signals, right? So sooner or later, problems will arise from that. Then what they say, oh, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. But then we go back to the same problem. Yeah. Like you have to understand, doing the macros is telling to your body that your own signals are unreliable. Yeah. That the only reliable source of information is not your own system, it is an outside person. Do you understand how damaging this is on the human level? Obviously you don't, because some of you are doing it. But read the shit that I read, and you can spell disaster from the idea alone. This is everything that I read from, for example, circadian rhythm getting fucked up, leading to mental illness, eating disorders. Anorexia actually is one of the leading cause of morbidity when it comes to that. Yeah. You know, it's hard to get out of it. A number of the mental illnesses, all that stuff comes from interoception signals being messed up. And this is step 1. Macros are the step 1. You are telling your body that it is unreliable when it comes to eating correctly, but that an outside person is.
And everyone that I know and care about who has had, many people who've had anorexia, like eating disorders, people I've known personally, care about. The issue is very commonly control, more than it is food. So at this point, you cannot just come in and play this game. We talk about intervening at the wrong point in the system. This is just creating a negative incentive.
You know what the other thing is?
This is my version, this is the food version of criminalizing alcohol possession. How'd that go?
Or drug possession.
Exactly. Yeah. What you do by just intervening in the drug problem that we have.
At the end,
we have damage due to drug addictions.
Yeah.
So what we need to do, we want there to be less damage on that. Well, let's just make doing drugs against the law and punish that. Yeah. Well, I think we can all say, 1, drugs have won the war on drugs, and 2, that the process of that has caused the war on drugs has caused way more damage to society and to humans
and people,
than
the drugs themselves.
Unchecked drug addiction has. Yeah. And this is the issue. You cannot address an issue at the end of the fucking cycle. You gotta play the whole game.
Yep, exactly.
And it's just never that simple.
Yeah. Read about interoception, you'll see exactly what I mean. But to me, that idea of, again, this is like macros are the system going against humans. If you could see the power of the body as a biological entity through the reading that I do, you would be in awe at the strength of the system, how complex it is, how amazing it is in a complexity we barely start to understand, even from the greatest mind like Carl Friston. Yeah. And you take that, and you're going to put that, so you're going to put the macros, which is I'm sorry, one of the dumbest thing ever, since it doesn't even fit digestion, and you're going to put that in control of that. It's putting my daughter in charge of a Ferrari.
Yeah, it's just quantity manipulation.
It's the damage you can do with this is, and we see it all the time. Like people, after a while, it starts to fuck with their head so much. And I get it. It's easier to sell. I get that. It makes your job easier. And I'm sorry, but in that sense, macros are bullshit.
God,
and
but it doesn't. God, this is the problem for those that want to live on it. The idea that I can do it. Here's the thing. When we say macros, we're talking a macro diet in which we're giving you numbers.
Manipulation of numbers.
That's it. Now, obviously, knowing what macronutrients are, what the difference is important. And that's,
of course.
But that's a clarification that sometimes does get missed. Like, well, knowing what protein is, like, I get it. That's not what we talked
about. We're talking about manipulation of numbers.
Yeah, but and then the classic, if it fits your macros stuff, where it's like, you can eat some junk food as long as it piles in here. It's like, you've already suppressed the caring for yourself version and the listening to your signals.
The plus is not true.
What about, Julien, though? What about someone that would say that your signals are all fucked up in the beginning, that they are unreliable because you're unhealthy at that point? Is that, what if, we talked about using it as, to hold you over, but how do you start somebody who can't trust their signals?
Okay, so there's two types.
Because I am hungry, I feel hungry, maybe I'm not, but I feel
There's two types
maybe I'm just bored, but I don't know the difference.
There's two types of fucked up signal. You got the hypo and the hyper. Okay. The hypo is you just have no connection with yourself. So you eat because you think you should, you think you want to, because that food looks good, or you go like, I like the reaction that food gives me. Right. That's more hyper. Like, it's more like you have no connection to the body, so this food, you're gonna eat it, but it's almost out of habit because you can't tell. You got the hyper. Hyper is completely the other way, which means, like, for example, you are overthinking. Like when you don't have enough energy because you haven't eaten in a while, right? And it's like, I need to eat a little bit, right? On the hyper side, you're making it too big of a deal, which means I have no energy. You start freaking out and you eat everything in the place, binge eating. So I discovered I was doing that a little bit. Like, I was always eating more than my hunger justified. Right, that's a problem on the hyper side, which that's a typical trait of autism, is the sensitivity is very high versus the actual, so my accuracy is wrong. It's awareness versus sensitivity, versus awareness that is low. So accuracy is fucked up. So that was always my problem, which is much better lately. That's why I'm much leaner. It's because my accuracy got better because of my life being better. That's another podcast we'll do. So the accuracy was wrong. So therefore, I would like, my energy is low, or I'm hungry, sensitivity would jump up, so I would end up eating more than was needed. Right, that's on the hyper side. The hypo side would be the other, which means I have no accuracy because I can't feel shit. There's no awareness whatsoever. So how do you fix that? Not through an outside source. The only way you can is to be better at interoception. So trauma in your youth can affect that. Like, for example, it was proven that you associate warmth, like the feeling of warmth, of safety, and satiety. Like when you're not hungry anymore, like that feeling of satiety. Satiety? French.
You feel, if it's warmth, you feel satisfied. Satiated.
Satiated, exactly. So when you've eaten enough and so the feeling of satiety is associated with a primary caretaker. Because the mom, she's the one who gave you warmth, safety, and food. So you associate that with the face of the primary caretaker. So if you come from a background where the primary caretaker was an evil bitch that ended up trying to torture your whole life, go figure why, or abandoned early or whatever, that interoception will be messed up because those feelings of satiety cannot be associated with the proper person. You have never built safety and satiety in a correct way. So you're not sure what it means. So in my case, that would make you feel unsafe sometimes when you should feel safe, or not done eating when you should be done eating.
So you overreact in pursuit of that.
And so you overeat, and you overeat because you never know what satiety truly is, because you don't know what safety is, because it was never created for you by the only person who could create it, your primary caretaker. We are social animals first. We spend the first 3 months of our existence incapable of defending ourselves. first months incapable of moving outside of stuff like that. So everything that we have is created through the primary caretaker. This is why abuse on children is so damaging. Because then you don't know what safe is, you don't know what satiety is. So it can lead to overeating in that sense. The only way out of it is to then recreate it and find that for yourself.
Yeah.
Macros are just a outside control of your inability to control yourself because you have not learned it. The only thing you can do is to learn that. How do we do it? That's when exercises can come about. That's why the exercises that I have can come about. That's why psychotherapy can help. Like, first of all, you can't fix a problem if you don't recognize there is one. My point is the way out is not to rely on macros and an outside system that tells you that you are unreliable in your in understanding your own signals. The only way out is understanding your own signals better. Make you in charge instead of someone else even more. You need to rely on hunger, but not deny the fact that it's not working. So you need to rely on hunger and you go like, Jesus Christ, did I just get fatter this month? All right, obviously that's not going right. So what did I do wrong? And you go like, and then we go like, maybe timing protein during the day. Then we can look at the protocol and go like, types of protein. Was it bad quality protein? Maybe eating at that restaurant, too much because they put sugar in it. Yeah. Did I drink too much? But then you can start, so the point is always to be precise because that's another problem. People think if you're not on macros, you're not precise. I am the most precise person you'll ever meet. Except I don't rely on any numbers.
Because you're a constantly modulating system that's modulating based on the information it's getting clear.
I eat veggies, I will look what my reactions are on tomatoes versus cucumbers. Yeah. I kid you not. And then I will base that on how I read, how I go through the day, my level of energy, my baseline, my reaction to stress. You have no idea the number of variables that I incorporate in anything that I do. It's at levels that are extremely high. I am the most precise person you've ever met, but without ever looking at macros, because that numbers means nothing. So I have tomatoes, how do I feel? I do that with every single thing. I have a chai latte, how do I feel when I read stuff? That's how I built everything. So the point is to be able to rely on my signals better, which is a problem for me, since my interoceptional awareness is, so I've fought through that through my entire life, and I get better at it. Yeah. But that's how you get out of it.
And so, like a real good example of where macros can do you wrong is this is something I had recently. It was new country, new stuff, getting used to the meat, new stores. I'm not sure where to shop, what. And so I'm eating meat, trying red meat, trying pork, trying this, trying that, different cuts. And there's just some days where I was really waking up like just food just wasn't just diet, just hanging with me. And I still go again, other than what I have during training. I still go mostly fasted, other than
nothing has changed.
Now I'm at the point where I have 250 milligrams or so of heavy cream first thing in the morning, and I won't have anything unless I train. I'll have some carbs during training, and then I won't eat anything until dinner. Maybe a handful of nuts, nothing else. And I'm not pigging out at dinner because the stomach's kind of you're not like. There's not a lot of room to expand, so I don't eat a ton then either. But it was still feeling like it's hanging with me, like
not digesting
still feeling it the next morning, and it was odd. Well, what's the solution? Is to reduce the meat over, like not really, because I'm not eating too much. I could spread it out. What it was I started finding some different types of meat. I ended up realizing that really well for me, I digest really well chicken here, better than I ever did back home. Red meat here doesn't digest to me at all, and pork worked best for me. Whatever the pork is in Austria was great for me. Pork here,
So it's chicken mostly.
Chicken works well, and specifically like chicken hearts and chicken liver. I do really well. I do well with beef liver also.
So more fats, organ meats, fat.
Yeah, organ meats, but also I think they're very mineral rich. They're very nutrient dense.
Always,
And I think that for me, that limited. All of a sudden, I'm waking up leaner, less water retention. I can evacuate.
Which is always a good sign, by the way. That's a very important.
I feel like I'm not carrying around any food, and that's the issue. As someone who had to eat to bulk, has eaten to cut, everything.
Tried all that stuff.
No matter what, I still felt like I was carrying.
Let's talk about this a little bit, because we are also in summer. And so circadian rhythm is not just on a 24 clock, there's also a year clock. Obviously, see that's how the earth works. And in summer, the sympathetic is higher because longer days, and here the days go on until fucking like 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So naturally, our digestion toward the end of the day is weaker in the summer than in the winter. So that also could
and
affect
eating
you.
a little bit later, and so there's
Right.
there's a lot of change. But this is the fluid, constantly evolving,
And by the way,
adapting system.
Who cares? You digest chicken better than red meat right now. So what do?
Yep.
You eat fucking chicken.
But I don't want that prescribed to me out of the
Yes,
blue. I want
exactly.
the idea
You need
of
to figure it out.
rattling around in that is kind of how you figure it out. It was the favorite thing with the way I've been running the group with the muscle program is that there's not
Click here for the next one.
yeah, there's not a I don't give lists of exercises. I don't give reps and sets. That's the point. Is I want you to be a part of this process.
Because
and then
what
it is
happens
yours.
next time? Let's say I tell you to eat
if
chicken.
you fucking need me forever to feed
Right.
you macros or to feed you a
Right.
training
So
program,
I tell you to
I've
eat
done you
chicken
wrong.
and you feel better. And tomorrow I die in an accident. When winter happens and you should switch to red meat, how would you do it?
or go to something really fatty.
Right. And you're just going to stay with chicken,
Yeah.
whereas maybe in winter, we'll see, by the way, we don't know yet, but we'll see. Maybe in winter, Tyler will go back to red meat because that's what he will need back then.
Or I might find a butcher that's just got the shit that I really like, and it works for me.
Maybe organ meats because it's fattier right now works better.
Or and my one of my theories is too is that I'm not a snacker on vegetables all day. I get my veggies in the evening. Is that I think that there is just more nutrients generally in organ meats than there is in regular.
That's what we're
lean
supposed
meat.
to. Yeah.
And so for me,
Definitely.
I could either eat a more diverse offering of vegetables throughout the
maybe
day,
that-
but I
that's a
don't
very good
want
point.
to.
That's a very good
Because I
point.
like to just during the day, I get up.
You're sharp,
like
right?
It's been up, work, work, read.
By the way,
meetings here.
Can we talk
And I
about
love
this
that.
for a second?
Yeah.
Right. That the way you eat, the protocol, the StrongFit protocol is designed also on something no one seems to have in mind is who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to be someone super sharp all day or a bit more? Where do you want your baseline to be? The way you eat will affect your baseline. Not everybody wants to be at a +2. Some of us want to be at a +7 all day and crash at night. Some people won't like that. They want to be at a +2 and a +3 at night.
Well, like when we have our meetings, we're like today we were talking. We're going through it's work, business, theory, podcast.
I like those, yeah.
And it is a very elevated. It's funny
Sharp.
because if the other people in this place that were there, like if they're listening to us, like first off, this seems like some very in-depth subjects. They are all over the place. I think they're both mad. Are they mad at each other?
Exactly.
Why are they so
Why are they
loud?
fighting? Yeah.
Why are they slamming things and doing this? But that is how all of this stuff that we do.
You should see the meeting last night.
But that's how all those things that we do happen. Is that's what makes the
Plus, it doesn't matter. That is the way I want to be.
I can't.
Done.
I can't produce at the level we produce. I can't think at the level we think.
If
on.
you eat
if I just got
a
up
big
and like
lunch,
smoked a joint, and
exactly.
fucking played a little Xbox, and fucking had some pancakes, and
or even a big lunch. So that's what I realized. Like, what is it? Almost. It's 6 weeks ago now. Like. That lunch that I was having, that huge amount of fat, was just getting me down for 4 hours. But I can't. So since what happened 6 weeks ago happened, and my life is much better, my hair is growing way faster. My nails are growing faster. Like I can tell this very specific body reaction that tells me I was in a slightly depressed state. So what I think happened was not being able to realize it because first of all, I just move forward like as usual in what I do. So whatever, put it in back. And I still function at a very high level regardless.
Yeah.
So, but I think for me, for my own center, which is not anybody else's center, I was in a slightly depressed state. So I fed that with high amount of saturated fats that trigger the parasympathetic side.
Yeah.
So that, not mild depression, but like very slight depressed
it was
state.
just a way to downregulate yourself a little
Exactly.
bit. Yeah.
Right. But that's because I wanted to be deregulated because I was in a slightly depressed state.
Yeah.
Not a good idea. I'm not saying I did it on purpose. I'm saying this is what affected my choices because at that moment, this is who I wanted to be. And when I realized like, well, that's not good,
But you had to action your way out of that. Not
I had to
food
feel
your way
different.
out of it.
Yeah, I had to life my way out of that because my life changed.
Yeah.
My life changed, and suddenly I was like, I don't want to feel like this. What did I do?
I need to be active. I need to be up.
Yes, I don't want to feel like that. So suddenly fats went way down, started to get some foods to get my baseline higher, which feels a lot better right now.
What's interesting is even in that, you've dropped fats, which I'm guessing calorically you're at a minus probably from what you were then, truthfully, because of the calorically dense fats.
Oh,
you're
totally.
So like you're probably eating fewer calories. You might be getting a little more, whatever, but you are training the same.
Yeah.
And you
Nothing changed.
and yet,
well, actually, I'm training better.
you're leaner, but also you're hanging on to the same amount of muscle.
Yeah, and actually I train better because I'm a lot fitter right now.
Yeah, and so that's the thing that we notice is there's times
my strength didn't go down.
You'll go through those cycles where you'll lean out a little bit, but there's always a cost. And at the end of those cycles, this was probably like the biggest lean I've seen you.
Yeah.
This last few weeks.
That's I might be ever. I would have to do another body test, but I bet you right now, the biggest I was 250, like 115 kilos.
Stick boy gene.
Yeah, exactly.
Stick boy Julien.
It's not that hard for me to get there. And I remember doing a test, and my body mass was 205. I think, like, so once you take the fat out, I bet you I'm higher right now because I'm 228 to 30 right now, and I'm probably around. I must be hovering around 10-11% body fat because I'm. Like at the tattoo parlor, when I was doing that, I took the shirt off. I was like, oh, fuck me. Six pack. I was like, shit, I look good. And all the women were like, so yeah, it's working. But I bet you I'm carrying the most muscle mass ever right now. Yeah. My training is going up because I'm a lot fitter. I do what I want.
Yeah.
So, but you know why? Because I lifed my way into that one. I'm better overall. But the point too is if I was doing the protocol I'm doing right now, 8 weeks ago, it wouldn't work because 8 weeks ago I wanted to downregulate myself, not upregulate myself because I hadn't fixed my life.
Yeah.
Now that part wasn't necessarily up to me to fix, but doesn't matter. It changed. The way I want to be during the day changed. Therefore, my food intake is changing. Like they all related like that. Who do you want to be during the day will change the way the protocol will affect you and the way you will affect the protocol. It's a human thing. Like it's always a two-way street. Now, I mean, like everything, all the parts have to come together. So you can't just say, have fruits and cheese like I'm doing, maybe it'll make you feel a way you don't want to feel.
Well, and that's the thing that when people, that's where when people come to us and say, well, can you run through a day of your eating? It's like, first, we've done it many times. We've walked through exactly kind of what we eat in a day. The issue is, the reason that you still ask is because you mimic it and it didn't work for you, and that's not the point.
And you won't, because you're not, I want to feel like this.
Yeah.
But if I didn't, I would change the food.
Yeah.
I want to feel like this. This is a very high baseline right now, which I enjoy a lot. My reading had to go down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because because I realized I have to be a little bit lower than that to read, but that's okay because right now we're focusing on StrongFit, so it's a lot of meanings who are in by baseline to be higher
a lot
anyway.
More dialogue, a lot of active problems.
When I go back toward reading about the crazy shit, I might have to come down a little bit. I don't know yet, but the point is, right now, this is the baseline I want to be at. And right now, I need veggies, fruits, and cheese during the day to achieve that.
And I achieved that same elevation with pure fasting outside of 8 a.m. cream. That's it. And so that's different. It's just two totally different.
But it's the same idea. Yeah. We still have protein at night. We still have the veggies at night. We just handle the day differently to achieve the same result because different body type, different ancestry,
genetics,
epigenetics, family history.
I cook all of my food, so I don't really like cooking things there's specific things I just don't want to deal with. You know what I'm saying? So that's my thing. If you're someone like really likes cooking and making bread, they might have different issues and dilemmas with how it fits in their diet. For me, I don't
can you have bread
go to a bakery.
It depends. Yeah, exactly.
I'm never going to bake a loaf of bread. Dough is a mess. I'm not going to clean the shit.
No, plus you know the work it is to make a good one. Jesus Christ.
So for me, that's a no. Like removing bread from my diet is super easy. But for somebody who really enjoys it, it's a different thing. Your process,
then go get it in Paris with that peasant bread bakery,
or make it from scratch and make it awesome. And don't make it every day. Make it the elaborate one that's a lot of work so that it is very rewarding. And then,
by the way,
put that shit on your calendar.
Culturally, we've seen that carb-based higher percentage of the whole thing, carb-based diets work only in low-calorie diets.
Yeah.
Asia, Africa, Japan. Japan is in Asia, but you get the idea, right? That the ones that are more carb-based are more like toward low-calorie diet, and people that move more.
That's when people always throw that what you see these places that have really long, longevity,
Right.
life expectancy, they have high carbs. It's like, yes,
But let me
they
explain to you
are
why.
not eating high carb and in a massive caloric surplus.
Exactly. And so they eat usually, and on top of it, producing carbs means farming. Farming is so much more work than hunting.
Yeah.
Physically. So what you see with longevity is people that are active 12 hours a day. They rise with the sun, they go to bed with the sun. The rest of the time they're working because farming is so much more work than hunting.
Yeah.
Whereas you see some like the Western European hunting cultures, they have way more protein and lots of organ meat, so way more fats. And then guess what? They're bigger because they had, so if you want a higher calorie diet, you're gonna have to go toward protein and fats.
Yeah.
If you go a lower calorie diet, you're gonna have to go more. You're gonna have to up the percentage of carbs more.
You're gonna have some more available
in
energy.
a low calorie, because also Prevotella, the gut flora, but in a low calorie diet, you can't have both. You don't get to up the carbs and up to a high calorie diet. Then you're fucking up the body, because then the nervous system will be shut from it. And then we go back to the idea of the protocol. So there are ways to do anything if you understand the interaction of all the systems correctly. But so that idea of macros, doesn't it sound like a stupid oversimplification now? Mm-hmm. Because that's what it is. They're just selling you something.
But I think there's value. So to send you off with the thing is that if people are seeking you for nutrition advice, or you are seeking some sort of nutritional guidance, look to the human first. The human, the lifestyle, the behavior, the whole thing, and work on the human, not the food. Because the food will follow.
The food will follow.
If you teach a human being to
look at culture,
respect their body, respect the thing, you can educate them on the dangers of processed sugars. Learning that and learning the cost of that. That's how you can educate someone. And then you teach that person to care about themselves and care about the way they feel and notice it. They're not going to spend all this time putting
By the way,
stuff
regardless of what you want to do, stop the processed sugars. That one, honestly, I think we can all agree on that one. This one has to go away.
It's very convenient in the United States for that type of stuff, because I was driving, I'd go to a convenience store, all the
sodas,
whatever it is, it's always easy to get that. For me, just doing types of things is kind of inconvenient. It's COVID, there's stores, there's lines, I'm on a bike, I'm not just rolling into a store with a drive-through window. So it's very easy for me not to deal with it. But for if it is readily available and people don't have that education, educate about that and then teach self-care and the process.
Because it's a choice. The thing with macros is you don't have a choice, you do as you're told. That's never a good system. Choice. It's Maxwell demon, man. You need to make a choice.
Well,
anyway,
your choice is to join us next week.
And press the subscribe button.
I think that's enough timing too, where it might be able to be up there. And we are. All right. Let me swatch.
Bye, everybody.
Real quick. Support the podcast. Head on over to podcast.strongfit.com. There you could donate or join the YouTube channel. Also, go to strongfit.com. There you're going to find our online courses, education, and all of our seminar dates should be there as well. Head on over to strongfitlibrary.com to keep up to date on everything Julien's been working on. And follow StrongFit1 on Instagram and Tyler F. and Stone.